Good morning. Happy Friday. We're into December. Austin, how are you doing?
We are into December. It's getting close to Christmas. The mustache is gone, so that it's a very depressing couple of days of my life. But no, I mean, hey, it's December. It's finally snowed outside, so it looks a little Christmassy and stuff. I can start to get energized for that. But no, things are doing good. How about you?
All is well. We had actually a decent enough day out here, but December tends to be a fairly slow in the markets kind of thing. I'm not anticipating all too much, to be perfectly honest, from any of the companies we follow, any big news. I know that's a constant sense of frustration. I feel a lot of YouTube comments or emails about frustration about assay results in particular.
Yeah.
And especially if you're new to the space, it can happen. And this is very long. It really is. But it's not an excuse. None of these companies are making excuses up. It's literally that much of a backlog. And you can thank your governments for shutting down things. That's the biggest part that's affected. And then when you have a sector that has been out of favor for so long and still considered basically out of favor, even though it's desperately needed and required, it's only starting to pick up now. The amount of mining that was done, and just say Canada alone, and the few assay labs that they have, it's pretty onerous. So I'm never a big fan of, quote unquote, making excuses for anything. But today, it is frustrating. Like, believe me, I want to see a lot of these results too. So we just have to hang in there. And who knows? We could get results tomorrow, the next day, Christmas, who knows? But it is frustrating for people, and that we'll just have to get through Christmas and focus on other things. I think that's the message.
I think so. And it's important for people to remember too, you're saying it's not making excuses, right? And we're seeing that across the board. If it was just a couple of companies that we talked to that were saying, we're having troubles with the assay labs, but tons of other companies were getting results rapid, no issues, then you'd be saying, okay, what's actually going on here? But when it's across the board, everyone you talk to is saying, oh my God, we sent these into the lab 6 weeks ago, and they're now telling us it's going to be another 6 weeks till we hear anything back and stuff like that. So it can be really frustrating for us as investors looking at these companies, but it's just as frustrating for the guys involved with those companies as well, sitting there and saying, oh my God, I wish we had these results back.
Yes. And I mean, this COVID event has highlighted a lot of the issues in the system that we have. It has caused problems as well, but most of it has just highlighted the problems that were already there, and that you run into with this interconnectedness of things that all economically might be efficient, but makes no sense as far as when you plug in, why am I shipping this nut and this bolt from China over to here? Because wait a second, the carbon cost now has to be added in. So a lot of these things that we took for granted before, where just send everything over to China, have them make it, and hopefully make it properly, then ship it back over. All of this is gonna change. And I know people don't like to hear that. And take the politics aside, there's a smarter, better ways, and there's no reason why, especially in Canada and the US and Europe, while we don't have factories making things nowadays, it's not this idea of shipping everything off to some foreign country to hopefully make everything for the rest of the world, and then also expect them to adhere by certain standards that the rest of the world has, and also to treat their workers fairly.
Let's say,
I think people, when they actually start to look at the complexity of everything that's happening in the world today, it's very challenging. And I don't, we'd laugh and joke and make light of a lot of it. But I think people need to there's a lesson in that of taking responsibility from one's own pursuit, one's own health, one's own rights and liberties and everything. We have that luxury right now, although it's rapidly losing every day. But we do have those today. We might as well enjoy them for as long as we have. And when we're talking about, if you watch any of these shows, or you talk to any of these companies, or you happen to see BlackRock videos or Vanguard, and you listen to how they talk, infrastructure and supply chain are key. Now, I know a lot of people don't find that very interesting. I find it fascinating because it's this integration of new, cleaner, greener ways of doing things. And also it's one of those things, when I see obvious supply demand problems and in completely ignored sectors, I see that as a huge potential growth factor. And these are all huge areas to be focused in on. Never mind when we talk to, say, like Ariana phosphate, food, because once again, you're talking about all of it. I'm like getting food to the plate. I mean, that's transport, that's supply chain, and that's also, the ability to feed ever growing populations.
Yeah, it is for sure. And it's critical stuff to be paying attention to. And it's like you said, it's not the sexiest thing for a lot of people to look into and talk about and wrap their heads around. But when you start to break it down and look at it from a real technical standpoint, you can see how little tweaks and changes in these structures and supply chains and stuff can cause massive ripple effects across the entire economy.
Yes. And we're going to jump into a little bit about crypto and maybe the metaverse type thing, because we're looking at that stuff for the new year coming up. But I wanted to just give a little shout out because we're always talking about NG Energy. The symbol is GasX. So they have their licenses and have been approved for drilling 22 wells at their C09, and they've got all the environmental permits and what the licenses done. So they have progressed everything. They're right on track. And they'd been really hit hard. If you remember, there's pretty violent uprising and protests in Colombia, and certainly COVID restrictions and whatnot back over the past year. So their milestones have been pushed back a lot, but they're back on track. They're hitting their milestones and their targets right now, as they said they would. The stock's down a little bit right now, but a lot of stocks are down right now, which, if you're looking day to day, it can feel like, oh my God, we're down a bit. I mean, that's true. I mean, I just look as a scoreboard for, today we're down, but long term, we feel very optimistic about the companies that we like and we cover. We don't work with NG Energy in any way. I have in the past. So we're not here trying to flog a stock for any other reason other than I think it's going to be a winner for us and for my own, risk tolerance and whatnot. So I wanted to kind of just give an update on that one, and another one just in mining before we kind of jump on, and that's Guanajuato Silver, who, once again, we also don't have any financial relationship, and I do own some of the stock, but we talk about them every once in a while. James is a friend, and they're just actually raising. They announced the closing, of their first tranche of raising money again, and Endeavor Silver came in for 3.1 million, and I think that increased their ownership of the company of G Silver or Guanajuato Silver to like 12.6% or something.
I think it's actually even higher than that. I think it's closer to 14%.
14. So maybe the old was 12.6 and this launches them up to 14.
Could be that.
So that's a pretty cool, that shows a big, strong joint venture to some degree there with a very big player. And we're really impressed by the work that James has done over there. So I believe that's the first tranche. So they might have more. If you want to reach out to James Anderson over at Guanajuato Silver to get involved in that financing, feel free. I can also hook you up as well. If you send me an email, say, hey, Andrew, I'd love to talk to James. Happy to do that. We don't, remunerate in any way. We don't sell stock. We don't do any of that kind of stuff, but I'm happy to pass you along to either James or whoever it is that would be doing that. But I do want to let people know that there is that opportunity out there to get involved with them. And once again, this is something where you've got a foundation of revenue coming in, and they just had their first $750,000 of revenue come in while they have this renovation story where they're building up this sign and they're expanding this resource here. So a very exciting story. And it's also great when you see companies like Endeavor Silver, who've got a great reputation and sitting very well themselves, seeing the potential here. So wanted to give that one a quick shout out as well for everyone.
It is for sure. And I'll just, that ownership percentage, I've got it here in front of me just to update on it. So it was 10.3% and it is now 13.75.
Okay, very good. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Good. So now I think you wanted to jump in and because it has to do with why some of the stocks are down right now as well. And we've kind of brushed it off here and there, but it's the whole concept of tax loss selling.
Yeah, so it's something we get some questions around, and obviously, I'm going to preface this by saying neither you or I or our financial advisors or accountants. I wear the accountant hat for us sometimes,
Yeah.
although it's not. I'm not an accountant by trade or anything, but it's an important thing for people to kind of understand the general concept of. So I'll lay it out in a very, very bare bones, broad structure, and then you can kind of jump in with your thoughts on it. But essentially, what tax loss selling or tax loss harvesting in Canada specifically, now this is all I can speak to, the Canadian specifics on it,
Yeah.
is when you have a net loss overall on a stock that you might own, you can use that to offset against your capital gains on stocks. So let's say you've had a really good year. Maybe you're invested in 7 or 8 different companies in your portfolio. And let's say 6 of those companies have done really well. Let's say you're up, 15 grand over the course of the year across those companies. But then you've got a couple companies that are down. You're down maybe 40% on one and another 20% on another for, let's say, roughly 10 grand loss on those 2 companies specifically. What you can do is you can sell those out of your portfolio at a loss and use that loss to offset against your current gains. So what you'll have is your net losses at the end of the year be essentially subtracted from your gains, and you'll be left with one of 3 scenarios. You'll either have a surplus, a gain, which you'll still pay tax on. So in that circumstance, we'd still have $5,000 left over at the top that we'd be paying tax on. A lot better than paying tax on $15,000.
Yeah.
You'd have a net zero, which is where they equally perfectly offset, which unless you are selling it at the absolute perfect moment is never going to happen. Or you're going to have a net loss, which so you won't be paying any tax at all. And what you can do is you can roll that loss forward into your next year, or in Canada, the way it works, and it might be different in other countries, you can actually go back against previous years. You can go as far back as 3 years back and use that loss as a tax credit on your latest filing as well.
And because often what people will do is they'll say, hey, I like XYZ stock. It's down 20%. I can take the loss right now. I'm going to buy it back. But how long do they have to wait? So if I say right now I'm selling Desert Mountain, I've taken a bit of a loss on that in this last round, but I love the company. I'm going to sell it, take a bit of a tax loss today, apply that to my taxes. How long do I have to wait before I can buy it again?
You have to wait at least 30 days from when you sell it. It's got to be at least in that time window. You need to allow, that's just what the government stipulation is on it. It's to try to prevent against any sort of manipulation where you may see bigger money getting in and out and just trying to basically, oh my God, it's December 28th and I need to offset some of my capital gains from this year. So it's just sort of in place to allow protections against that sort of thing.
Yes, good. Now, of course, I've worked at Merrill and a bunch of other firms, so I've been a planner in the past, but I'm not licensed at all anymore. So we're not giving you any advice on what to do or what not to do. It's just a term that people should be aware of. Most of you probably are, but if you are new and generalist, it's something to take up and take it to your financial planner, your stockbroker, your advisor, consultant, whoever it is, and just say, hey, listen, do we have anything in this portfolio? And this is what is good about having that advisor compared to if you just like having your Wealthsimple account and you like doing the stuff yourself. That's great. It's good fun. But this is where the added value of actually having that advisor there is, and we don't mind explaining, this topic, because at the end of the day, you really need to go to them anyway and say, listen, are there any other tax things that I could be doing? And that's where the benefits really start to pile in. And we always advocate for having someone who's licensed, who can check, and verify and whatnot, and even say, hey, these guys got part of it right, but you missed this. This is new. That's where the real benefit to having someone there is to help you structure an entire plan for your entire family. And once again, we like to reiterate that because we don't want people out just being cowboys and cowgirls by themselves, willy-nilly buying stuff and thinking that you can do things. It's always good to check with your accountant, check with your lawyer, check with your broker, make sure that they're keeping you on track with the plan that you have.
Well, because, someone who's a really experienced financial advisor may look at a situation like this and say, you know what, you may actually be better off to take the hit this year and roll that over into next year, then sell that stock off, and you can use that to offset what's going to be maybe a better year for you next year if you've had a, kind of average year this year anyway. So they'll understand the real technicalities and the other tricks and tips that you can use. But that's just to give people a general overview of the concept. And you used a great example like with Desert Mountain Energy there. I'm sure that's something that a lot of people have considered doing when it comes to that stock and the position it's in right now. So it's just something good for people to wrap their heads around and understand the general concept on.
Yeah, and that is because you can see when you have to wait 30 days and you look on the calendar, you go, okay, well, we're coming into a holiday season. Typically, once again, it doesn't mean nothing will happen, but typically, statistically, probability speaking, it's pretty quiet in December. Mm-hmm. So that mid-November to January 15th is when people start to look and go, okay, what do I have here in the books? And they talk to their broker, their advisor, their tax to say, who could I sell right now to buy back in? Because where you can get hit sometimes is you sell it. And then, and this will be tricky this year because all of these assays being totally thrown off schedule, is that then within that 30 days, an announcement's made and your plan gets foiled. But this is generally what kind of happens. And that also, when people recognize that kind of gap there of time frame where they can have that 30 days, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you can see people, you got a stock that's been a little bit beat up. It's going to take a bit more of a pounding. And it could be that there's systematic problems at the company, or it could just mean that there's just a potential that people have taken. They've taken the loss on purpose, and they're going to buy back in the next year. And especially when you see companies that we've been following very closely, where they're saying, "Hey, we're on track. We're looking for the first quarter, second quarter of next year with production." This, that. A lot of people will be looking, going, "Well, you know what? Is there any real news until January, February, March? Maybe I should wait." So it's good. It's just one of those things to keep in mind when you're looking at a stock and why it might be doing what it's doing. And it's just a little tidbit of information to put out there to people.
Yeah. Well, and it's important to remember as well, and I was going to make this point earlier when we were talking about, how the assays have been backed up and results not coming out. It's important to remember as well that companies may have these results now and just want to sit on them until after the Christmas period is done.
Yeah.
Because you don't want, if you've got really great news, you maybe don't want that to get lost amongst all the buzz and excitement of the holiday season. You might wait until, okay, let's get into January, then let's get these results out when the market might respond a little bit better to it.
Yes. And then, January is VRIC, which shows that's the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, which I will be speaking at. So
I will be there as well.
You'll be there as well. So make
cheering
sure you come.
On pom-poms.
Yes. We'll have a big crowd. It'll be lots of fun. So that's going to be a great event. It always is. And here in Vancouver. So that's, people like to also set that up too, so that they're going into that. There's lots of excitement and people are kind of geared up for it. It's going to be a great year next year for sure.
Yeah.
And we're talking a lot here. I was going to jump into some of the crypto stuff, but let's leave that for another day. Because we've got lots of time. I know that, once again, December is a tougher month for people to want to talk a lot about business. I think we can talk more about what to look forward to the year ahead. And certainly, although we don't pretend to be crypto experts in any way, shape, or form, we completely acknowledge the importance of it, certainly the interest in it, the absolute budget of marketing dollars that are thrown at it. If we had if the mining sector had a tenth of the budget that these people have to throw at promoting these cryptocurrencies, it would be quite astonishing. And that's great. They're creating a market. But what's interesting with it, and we can talk more about it, is how it, a company like, or not a company, a coin like Bitcoin, all of a sudden becomes an asset in which all these dreams of what blockchain can do become the focal point. Not unlike Elon Musk and Tesla becomes the one stock that everyone thinks means green, clean, all that. And it's like, that's just, you've fallen into the mainstream news narrative. You've fallen into the market. You've fallen into the advertising. And don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong. And we talk lots of praise about Elon Musk and whatnot. And you need to market things. You need to promote things. You need to get people excited about things. But at some point, when you're throwing too much money at something, it means it requires that level of marketing to keep it going.
Yeah, it does.
So we're going to jump into this stuff, and also, you're going to be jumping into lots of interesting stuff too that you've been putting a lot of work into, and you maybe kind of give a hint as to what you're up to.
Well, let's just put it this way. People know I have an interest in the gaming sector, let's say. And when I speak very broadly about the gaming sector, I mean everything from online gambling, sports betting, to companies like Royal Winds, where they've got a skill-based gaming, but also actual video games, and the market that can be behind actual video games, the driving force is there, the opportunities there really excite me. So as we kind of move through December and into the new year, I'm going to be bringing a lot more of that kind of stuff to the table. I'll leave it there. I won't speak too much more to it, but let's just say gaming in general is something that gets me very excited.
Excellent. All right. Well, one last thing I want to mention is that we are having every Thursday, I'll be talking about the market model mindset. It'll be a live stream. You have to reach out to Austin to get on the Zoom call. Feel free to ask me things, and you can even ask me some company specific stuff. I kind of want it really to be around this product. We have the market model mindset, but I'll sit on there for an hour with people. It's only like a 15-minute presentation that I do of just me yapping nonstop, but then it's just open to people to ask me questions. We're offering that to subscribers right now, because once again, we've done lots of changes. We changed our name. We've got the new website, new look, and we're inching closer and closer to having our subscriber base, which is growing rapidly, to becoming a paid subscription service, which will be coming fairly soon, to be perfectly honest, because of the amount of wins that we've had and the amount, and certainly how optimistic we are about the next year ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to tie into that as well, if you're not signed up to the website, the link's right there on the screen. Go ahead, sign up to the newsletter, get in there. We're going to give you lots of great content. Also, make sure you like the videos and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you haven't done that already, you're going to get notifications whenever we do a live show like this, whenever we post a new exciting video like the Desert Mountain update that we had come out a couple days ago. So make sure you're subscribed to us, follow us on all our social medias, and that's the best way to get the first access to all of our content.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Austin. Let's enjoy the day and have a great weekend.
Take care, Andrew. We'll chat to you next week.